Some of the top players in the class of 2025 in the state of Utah are set to take their visits to the University of Utah very soon. We're telling you everything you need to know about these potential future Utes on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcasts. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media, where you can follow our show at Locked On Utes today. Excited to be joined on today's show by Moose Bingham, a former Utah kicker, and has done so many other great things as well. I'm JT Wistricll, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Moose, I'm glad you're here to keep me straight because I literally just spilled my drink on myself during the intro song. So I'm ready to rock and roll now. Always happy to have you along. And, it's a big summer for the University of Utah, right? As they're entering this new phase in the Big 12, they're going to have a lot of recruits up. They want to remain prominent, and they're going to lose a lot after this year. Like a lot of the guys coming back, we're coming back another year for Cam Rising. And then after that, I expect a lot of these guys to depart. You look like you may not think they're going to lose those guys, but I think this is a key year for Utah recruiting still, and I think it starts by doing well in your state.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Utah, if they want to be successful from here on out, they have to lock down the state and they have to bring in the best players. They've done a great job of that in the past, but this class, the O-line for the class of 2025 is absolutely ridiculous. And then the skill players for the class of 2026 is just such a fantastic complement to that. So we're going to have a lot of kids in the state of Utah that if Utah wants to stay above the Big 12 and keep dominating that conference, they're going to have to go from the local waters and bring those kids in. Because if they do that, I can see Utah being dominant for the next 5-10 years. If they start to go outside of the state, and we've seen it from multiple of programs where they start to get success from going in the state, and then all of a sudden they see California, they see Florida, they see Georgia, and they're like, oh, let's go get those kids. One or two are great, but you need to have your base of little local kids. And the high school talent has just gotten so tremendous that if you don't get the local kids, you may be in trouble in the next few recruiting cycles.
You very well may be. You mentioned the offensive line in the class of 2025. So, Moose, Aaron Dunn is coming up to visit Utah this summer. Spanish Fork offensive lineman. He's a monster. Darius Afulava from Skyridge is also coming up to visit. I am curious of those two players, not trying to pin them against each other, but you can have a 1A, 1B still, and it be the case. Who is your top tackle in the class, and which of those two players? Be awesome if you could get both of them, but who does Utah absolutely need to land to those two?
So it's kind of interesting. They're not both tackles. Darius Afulava is more of an interior lineman at the next level, where Aaron Dunn is 6'7.5", 6'8". He is on the edge. And so Utah has just kind of wealth at offensive tackle right now, where interiorly they don't have a lot of dogs. They've got some good players and they're waiting for guys to come up, but there's been some guys they lost. They lost Bills to the draft. They just lost their starting center the last few years to Texas A&M. They're going to have some challenges getting those guys meshing together. So I think Darius Afulava is a big get, but I think Aaron Dunn is just as big. There's a lot of other guys to look at in this class. I mean, Brian Taupu out of West is awesome. He's 6'7", 295, rugby background. He's a kid that's getting offers all over the country. You're getting guys like Vea Ikaokola from West as well, came in from Hawaii. Ben Howard over at Skyridge, 6'3", 300 pound. Austin Pay, he's a kid that I don't know if he'll go to BYU. He wants to forge his own path. Toby Mailer, the kid that just came in from Arizona, getting offers to North Carolina State. He was committed to Arizona. He's a kid that's 6'5", 340 that could be on the interior of the line. And you're getting kids like Tommy Olson that just got offered from Utah State and Toha Samilia from Kearns. You're seeing a lot of different guys. Even the Kafusi kid from Skyline. There's so many guys that you're just like, where's this kid coming from? Where's that kid coming from? There's a kid from Kanab that's 6'6", 310. Where you're just like, where did this Orton kid come from? So I've been looking under rocks trying to figure out how to get high, how to do those things. These kids found it in abundance. maybe I'll start looking for the fountain of youth because it seems like everyone can find what I can't. But these kids, if Utah can go after the 25 class correctly, I think you're going to have linemen for the next 5 years ready to go. Some of these kids may go on missions, and that could bode well for Utah for the next decade.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about Ben Howard and Afulava, to your point, for a long time. I remember seeing Aaron Dunn break on the scene, and you're like, who is this man? Because you just do not see high school offensive linemen built like him. Austin Pay is another big one you mentioned. There's a strong BYU connection there. So the fact that Utah has a chance at Pay is obviously a huge deal as well. And also, just as a side note, if you guys, we get so wrapped up in like, will this recruit come to Utah and be successful? And we do a bad job of also taking a second, stepping back, being like, how cool for this player to have offers and opportunity to play at the next level. And Tommy Olson's video of him reacting, his friends, being surrounded by his family too. That's what makes this so great too. So we highly encourage all of you to head over to his social media. Tommy Olson, I don't remember his X ad at the top of my head, but it's just one of those great videos that reminds you of the joys of seeing offers. So the trenches is absolutely key, but there are also good skill position players in this draft. One of them is Jerome Miles, and he's currently committed to play for Lane Kiffin. He's still going to take his visit to Utah. Moose, you played the college game. He was also sneakily committed to Utah. Kind of a weird scenario that not many people knew. I know I didn't until I read the article and said he was. Moose, you've been around the college game. You work with college coaches. You know this stuff really well. How likely is it that Utah can flip Miles back?
So college commitments to colleges are like marriage proposals in Provo. They only go through about 50% of the time. And sometimes you're sitting there waiting for the next best thing. And sometimes it comes around and sometimes it doesn't. But in all reality, with this, I think Jerome Miles, him coming and giving Utah a visit is huge. They may be able to flip him, but maybe they don't. But nowadays, you can't just stop recruiting a kid and be like, oh, he committed to my opponent. Who cares? The likelihood of a kid hitting the portal is about 60% nowadays by the time they're out of college, depending on the school, depending on what's going on. So a lot of schools, you got to not just be forming the relationships for now, but forming the relationships for the future. So Jerome, maybe he goes and balls out and he's the next DK Metcalf. I would be so happy about that.
Same.
Maybe he hops in the portal and comes and becomes the next Puka Nacua for Utah, where he could come in, make an immediate impact, and then get drafted and then become NFL Rookie of the Year. I could see that. There's a lot of things going on where you just never know what happens. So Utah continuing to build that relationship, showing him why it's great to be at the University of Utah, and showing him the NIL possibilities of being a local fan favorite. That's a huge deal for Utah to even get an official visit after he said, I'm committed, because Lane Kiffin is one heck of a recruiter, and he's got his guy in Jerome Miles. I mean, 10,500. He's the best receiver I've probably evaluated from the state of Utah. I put him against Semi. I put him against Puka. I put him against Britton Covey. I put him against every single kid you can think of, and he is doing things that those guys were not able to. Even Ty Jones, who was once committed to Utah.
That's some extremely high praise. And as you mentioned, whether it's Utah getting to flip back right away or who knows, the transfer portal in the future, would be great to see Miles, especially renewing his connection with Isaac Wilson at the collegiate level. That would be something that would be incredible to obviously watch play out. So something that's going to be really interesting to see how the upcoming visit goes for Miles, even if it is likely he does stay at Ole Miss. But I like the analogy you made at the start there, Moose, about commitments at this time of year and everything that could kind of shake out there. There's a lot still up in the air. And there's still a lot to talk about with the class of 2025, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which we haven't even touched on yet. So we got to break down a loaded defensive front, linebacker group, and secondary in the class of 2025 in just the state of Utah alone in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you today about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes, our friends at LinkedIn Talent Solutions. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find those right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They have a vast network that helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. And in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. You can hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making that process that much quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. And if you want yours to join those ranks, you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's all caps, no spaces, Locked On College. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Moose, teed it up before. Defensive side of the ball is stacked. Where do you want to start when you're talking about the guys that Utah is coming up to visit, especially that you think it would be big for them to land this fall or in the next fall? Of course.
Yeah, let's start with edge. I mean, we got to talk about a kid that has the juice coming in with 6'2", 225. Nusi Tamaopeu. I really, really like Nusi. He reminds me of Pita Tamaopeu. Pita was at Timpview. He played in the NFL for the Niners, and I think he's still doing a lot of different things. But Nusi, out of Westlake, he does a lot of good things. If we're still at Westlake, you look at Saleh Fano, who's getting offers from a lot of P4 schools now and really blowing up. He has two cousins that are at the U right now. And Deshanta Olio, I really like him at edge as well. He's someone that not a lot of people are talking about, but he reminds me of Sione Taki. And so there's a lot of edges in this class, and Utah builds their team over rushing the quarterback, running the ball, and being fantastic on special teams. But you need to get those edge rushers. And there's three right there that Utah could get that I really, really like. After that, you got to really get the defensive line going. I like Carson Kafusi a lot at Skyline. He's on a team that's just terrible. I mean, there's one shining spot at Skyline, and it's Carson Kafusi. I'm sorry, you guys. You didn't win a game last year. I tried to get over to call a game, but it was brutal. But they've got a new coaching staff there. It's going to be good. But it wasn't due to Carson's effort or anything like that. And I know they're going to be playing him at tight end, D end, and possibly quarterback just to get something going. But Carson is a beast. Staying at Saratoga Springs at Westlake, Beckham Featherstone is a really interesting prospect to me. Interior, Job Tufele at Layton. He's getting some big looks from like Washington State and other schools. But the secret defensive lineman that I'm super excited to look at that I think Utah may end up offering when everything's said and done is Paxton Nagel out of Corner Canyon.
Yeah.
He's been playing offensive tackle for the last 2 years, and they're like, hey, if you want to play D-line, you can go do it. He reminds me a lot of another kind of lineman D-end that played at corner in Keaton Bills. He's got a very similar frame, but I think he'll be able to put some weight on, maybe be a 3-tech at the end of the day, and just a dominant force on the D-line. And I think Utah would be wise to bring him into the fold. So he's a kid I really, really like. After that, we probably need to go to linebacker. Be like, okay, who do we have? I know they offered Tani Makasini out of Timpview a while ago. Timpview is just stacked on the linebacker side of the ball. But the guy we're going to focus on the most is Cyrus Polu out of St. George.
As a visit coming up, to your point.
Yeah. He's a kid that they're like, he could play safety, and he absolutely can. You're looking at him kind of as a Chase Hansen type of kid, where you're like, oh, this kid, after we put some weight on him, we're going to throw him in the box, and he's going to be absolutely dominant because he has the hips to cover, because he does that. And in Utah's 4-2, he's a kid that could be absolutely just amazing. And he's a kid that they're just salivating at, looking at what they can do with him. The other linebackers in the state, it's kind of rough because some of them are already committed. You're looking at Tyler Payne, who I really like, and he's definitely not going to go to Utah. He's a kid that his dad was a puncher at BYU, and when you get a specialist, you know, you've got to have those kids going to where your alma mater is. But Tyler Payne's a good kid, not going to go to Utah. Matthias Lessa at Timpview is another kid I'm looking at, and John Amone is at East that I really like. He's been kind of flying under the radar. So there's some great linebackers in this state that we should be looking at, but they're just they're coming up on it. For corner, there's only one corner that I really think that I love for this class, and his name's Abe Jaeger out of Lehigh. He played at Alta last year. He's 6'2.5", 180. He's good size. He actually moves really well. He's a dominant corner, and he's really fun. But there's a lot of kids that are playing corner that I think are safety at the next level. So the safeties you should probably be aware of are Charger Dottie from South Jordan. I like Charger a lot. There's another kid at he's up at he's at
Charger used to be at Charger used to be at Bingham, right?
Charger's still at Bingham. He's
said
still
South
up
Jordan.
there. Yeah, he's South Jordan's in Bingham. South Jordan Bingham. So Bingham's in South Jordan.
If that was another reminder for those of you listening, I'm not from Utah, then you are reminded by that.
Sorry about that. I'm just using geographical locations.
I called Charger's name before. That's why I knew the name at least.
So Charger's been really impressive through the circuit. I mean, he's gotten offers from major universities. He's done a great job. Another kid to look out for is Kingston Mickens out of Viewmont. He's coming up to 6'2", 6'3". He's a kid that I think could come in and play nickel, but he plays corner. He plays safety for Viewmont. He's a kid I really, really like. And there's a couple other safeties that are very, very interesting to me. There's some kids in St. George. There's some kids all over. But I just did my safety list on my podcast, and there are just some absolute dogs. The kid that I really love is Keu Akana out of Orem, but he's a year out. Jaden Mayberry out of Lone Peak is a kid that you guys should definitely look out for. In 2026, Isa Nalier is a kid that I'm just like, what the crap is that? And if you want kind of an old school, a Gage Yardley, 6'2", 195 out of Richfield, or a Junior Coughlin who just ran a 10,800, who was flying around. So there's so many guys here where you're just like, there's just one or two. No, they're everywhere, and I just love to see it. And if Utah takes their butterfly net, they'll catch 5 to 10 of these beautiful butterflies that are just getting in their cocoons right now, ready to burst out.
Well, and to your point, Moose, this is how Utah has become. I talked about this on yesterday's show. Utah has become the dynasty they are today in terms of being one of 10 programs in the country that in the college football playoff era has finished each year with a winning record because they have recruited their state well and they found the under-the-radar guys well. You brought up a number of the high-profile guys that everyone will be going after, but a number of those under-the-radar guys, too, that are really important to keep in mind as Utah approaches this upcoming recruiting cycle, getting all these visits in over the summer. And a lot of these guys, I remember they didn't land a Spencer Fano, a Smith Snowden, Hunter Clegg until after the season had wrapped, too. So there's still a lot of work to be done even once the season concludes. But that was an exceptional breakdown on the class of 2025. And because you do such a great job breaking down the game of football, I wanted to ask you about the most important position, quarterback. Utah just added a guy in a former 5-star in Sam Heward, played at Cal, didn't work at Washington, did some nice things at Cal Poly last year. A lot of Utah fans have been clamoring. I said some nice things. We can some nice things, Moose. Let me continue before you look at me with that discouraging look on your face. Did some nice things last year. You'll get your chance to talk about it in a second. Now entered the portal. Utah fans were clamoring for a veteran backup. They have him in Sam Heward now. What are the chances he becomes the true backup this fall? And do you think he has a shot to start in 2025?
I hope he doesn't have a chance to start in 2025. I'm knocking on wood left and right. I'm in my hotel room finding every surface that's made of wood and knocking on that 3 or 4 times. No, Sam Heward, here's the thing. He went to a system at Washington where he thought he was going to be the man, and he came in as a 5-star kid. Utah's already kind of done this with Cooper Bateman, who was at Cottonwood, went to Alabama, 5-star kid. Then he came back, was at Utah for 1 semester, and he didn't even finish out the season. Yeah. And you're like, okay, how successful is it taking these 5-stars and trying to rehabilitate them? It doesn't work out often. These are guys that may have just been at a school where they were the man and they didn't face the top competition. They got there. It's the first time they faced top competition, and they didn't succeed at it. So I like that he went back, tried to rehabilitate his career. He went with the offensive coordinator that recruited him. Wasn't a very happy system for him at Cal Poly. He didn't throw for 3,000 yards. He threw for 10 interceptions. He did things that still make me question it. But here's the thing with Sam Heward. Does he have all the skills in the world? Absolutely. Are we going to risk the future in losing possibly not just our freshman this year, but our freshman next year? One of the two? I don't think so, to make him the backup and take over. So that's kind of the balancing act you have to deal with. I hope he comes in. If he does do it, fantastic. What a great story for him to be like, I figured it out. I'm great now. He has to get rid of the interceptions. If you throw 10 interceptions at Utah, Kyle Whittingham will lose his mind. So that's just kind of the situation you're in. You have to take care of the football. You have to end every series with either the punter or the kicker's foot hitting the ball. That's all that matters. No turnovers. If the ball goes on the ground, you're going to run a mile. If the ball goes into the defender's hands, you might be off the team. So this is kind of his last chance to be a P4 quarterback, and I hope he takes advantage of it. But right now, I don't anticipate him to start. If he does, fantastic. He deserves it because he's not coming in with promises and NIL and all this stuff to be at Utah.
Well, I appreciate that a lot because, when you add a quarterback like that, it is usually all like, well, this guy's, I think he's got a good shot and got a good chance if you look at what he did last year. So I think fans should really appreciate that breakdown and being honest about what his skill set currently is like that. And it'll be interesting to see if he is able to work his way in there, or if he is like some of those other former 5 stars you mentioned that have gone to the wayside a little bit after coming to Utah. So the world of recruiting is a fascinating one. Moose, you mentioned one of your guys in Wyatt Becker, who's already committed to the University of Utah in class of 2025. For those of you guys who have not seen some of our previous episodes that had Moose on, Moose, you're a huge Wyatt Becker fan. Can you tell me why that is?
You just put on the film and it brings a smile to your face. Dude is tough as nails. If you're going to be a quarterback at Utah, you have to be a little bit of a gunslinger. You have to stay in the pocket, and you have to trust that your wide receivers are going to get open because it's a lot of play action. It's a lot of leaving you out to dry. But Wyatt Becker can deliver when he's one-on-one with a defender that looks like the Rock. He throws like I couldn't believe. He's got great timing, great accuracy, phenomenal touch. Just I can't say a cross word about the kid, and I've tried. I broke down the whole class of 2025, and he was one of my top 2 or 3 favorites in the entire class.
It's incredibly high praise, and I know we all can't wait to see him get up to Utah and see what type of a season he has too coming up. You mentioned Becker's film brings a smile to your face. I want to talk about a guy in the class of 26 who brings a smile to my face. That's Helema Kasuga, who is now at Corner Canyon replacing Isaac Wilson coming off of there and what he did too. I'm a huge fan of Kasuga's game ever since he led Timpview as a freshman to the state title game. Then last year, won them the state title game. Now he has some big shoes to fill in Wilson's, but man, Moose, I think this guy's more than capable of it. And Utah already offered Kasuga, and they aren't the only ones.
No, Kasuga gets an offer a day, it seems like.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing about the 26 class, it's not just Kasuga. And I love Kasuga. I could talk till I'm blue in the face about Helaman Kasuga. He comes from a great family. I love Nephi. I love the whole clan. They're just great people. But he's not the only quarterback in this class. You've got Trayden Bessinger, who's at Davis, just got an offer from Weber. And he's a young gun, 6'4", 210. He's doing a lot of good stuff over there as well. There's a quarterback that just moved into Orem from Hawaii that we won't talk about till he's here because he's not here yet, but 6'4", 220. There's another kid right there. Another guy that you guys have to look out. I mean, the 25 class, you've got Jet Niu as well. They could ask him to gray shirt, come in and do a lot of good things. The new Lone Peak quarterback, Kepa Numatololu. I mean, Kepa's a dog. Played for Alta last year, got him to the semifinals, almost got them to the championship game. And I really liked what Kepa did. But the one that no one's really talking about that's really flying under the radar is Coniel Sweetwine. Coniel is at Skyridge. He's 6'3", about 210, dual threat quarterback for real. And he's a dude that already has offers, even though he's played very limited varsity downs. So he's a kid that could compete 1 and 2 with Helaman Kasuga. This 26 class is absolutely loaded. And we all know about Helaman, But there's a lot of other kids that, I mean, Utah may be willing to go after because Hillman, he has every offer under the sun. Are they willing to do what it takes to bring him in? I don't know.
Yeah, there are so many great players at so many positions in the state of Utah. Moose, if only there was a podcast that broke all of their games down, wouldn't that be great?
Oh my gosh. I mean, people would pay millions of dollars to listen to that, telling them half the kids that are playing probably aren't going D1 and the other half are probably getting more money than the whole podcast has made in its existence. But no, yeah, I love doing the Utah Preps podcast because there is so much talent in this state. There's so many good things and there's so many good people. And it's not like in other states where you're highlighting a kid and you're like, this kid sucks as a person. The beautiful thing about the state of Utah, you're like, I really like these kids as people. I think the future is amazing. And I think that they're going to be leaders in society. I love seeing the Fanos with their podcasts. I love seeing all these dudes who go to the University of Utah and are super successful, from Britton Covey to doing his Covey Classic, his golf tournament, where he's going to raise a ton of money, to Andy Phillips, who's coaching his kid. And you get to see everyone and everything that they're doing. It's just a magical thing to watch.
It is a magical thing to watch, and it's always entertaining, just like a magic show whenever you come on here, Moose. So we always appreciate you taking the time. Make sure you guys give him a follow at MooseB90 on X. Tons of great stuff he's got going on. So make sure you guys follow him over there. Check out the Utah Prep Podcast and everything else he's doing. Moose, thank you again for joining us.
Anytime, let's do it again. Hopefully I'll be back in the beautiful state of Utah with all you wonderful people soon.
We look forward to having you on again very soon, my friend. Thank you again for taking the time. That is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you tomorrow talking more things Utah football and Utah athletics.